And Trump is stuck in a trap of his own making. Well, that couldn't have been clearer after we got the U.S. response today to what Iran had said earlier. Remember that proposal that Trump said he didn't read all of it, and then when he was coming back from China, and some reporter asked him about that, and he said, I read the first sentence, I didn't like it, so I didn't read the rest of it. Well, that proposal, I guess somebody read because the U.S. has responded. And the U.S. response is probably not going to go very far, because I can literally predict what Iran is going to say. So we're going to quickly run through what the U.S. has said and what has happened. Well, over the weekend, Pakistan's Interior Minister, mohsinnaqvi, went to Tehran. And he met initially with his counterpart, Interior Minister Momini of Iran. But today, on Sunday, he met with Iranian President Pezeshkian as well as Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. And I would assume, they never tell us these things, but I would assume that he presented the U.S. proposal. And for the first time, Iran kind of leaked it. And the Fars press agency, which is an Iranian semi-official news agency, listed 5 points that they said the U.S. had presented. So I'm going to list all 5 of them for you, and then I'm going to tell you which one is likely to work and which one hasn't. Now, some of them, like for the first one, the very first sentence was, no reparations to be paid by the United States. I guess that's what really annoyed President Trump, because he doesn't like to give money over. It's transactional, remember? But anyhow, so no reparations to be paid by the United States. Now, I don't want to joke about this, because remember that Iran is claiming damages for what the U.S. and Israel did in literally 30 to 40 days of severe bombardment, including a really beautiful bridge that hadn't even gone into use yet. And they said it was a dual-purpose bridge, so they blew it away, which was kind of sad to see. And then the second thing that the U.S. has said is that there was a removal and transfer of the 400 kilograms of enriched uranium to the United States. They want Iran to give it to the U.S. Iran has said that repeatedly. We're not giving that to the U.S. They have sort of hinted that they might be willing to consider a third party or the International Atomic Agency, but certainly not to the U.S. And the third thing, they said, this is crucial. Only one nuclear facility may remain active in Iran. Let me read that to you again. Only one nuclear facility may remain active in Iran. That's a paradigm shift from what President Trump has been saying for the past few days, especially in the last 48 hours. He was like, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. They're going to have zero enrichment, zero enrichment. And now he's accepted in this written proposal that Iran can retain one nuclear facility. Of course, that would be in compliance with the requirement of not enriching 3.67%. That is sort of a given, I think, at this point. And the fourth thing that the U.S. said is that there will be no payment of frozen Iranian assets, not even 25%. Not even 25%. So I'm going to have to guess that Iran suggested maybe 50%. And so the U.S. is saying, no, not even 25%. Now, this is not money that the United States has to pay to Iran out of its own pocket. This is Iranian money that is frozen around the world in different countries, not just the United States. So earlier also, Trump was very upset with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, in which he said $1.7 billion was just given by the Obama administration to Iran. Well, no, that was money the U.S. owed Iran from way back in 1979. So it took Iran that much time to just get their own money back. Now they're asking for their money that is frozen. It's their money, not anybody else's. And the fifth one, and now this is going to be the really tricky one where I see Iran digging in its heels, and that is linking a ceasefire on all fronts for a condition for holding negotiations. Linking a ceasefire on all fronts. Now this is tricky because Iran says they're not willing to go for a ceasefire. They want a commitment for an end to the war on all fronts. When we say all fronts, we mean Lebanon, because Lebanon, again, several people were killed today in continued Israeli bombardment, and in Gaza as well, and the West Bank as well. The ceasefire is not holding anywhere, and separate talks are taking place between Lebanon and Israel under the U.S. Administration's guidance, but that hasn't really gone anywhere, and Iran is linking a stoppage of war. They don't want a ceasefire anymore. They want an end to the war, and they want guarantees. Is this going to fly with the U.S.? Well, I'm glad to see a little bit of flexibility. In negotiations like this, even a little bit of flexibility helps. But the main problem, and I'm going to go back to this over and over again, the main problem is the United States constantly changing its position. And I don't think I could say it better than Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi did at a press conference in India after the BRICS Foreign Ministers Summit just a couple of days ago. So let's take a listen to that.
So the most important issue right now is the question of trust. We cannot trust Americans at all. So everything should be exact. Everything should be defined very clearly before we can conclude a deal. And it is obvious that those things they have not been able to achieve militarily, they cannot achieve on negotiation table unless there is a win-win solution achieved. So the current negotiation is suffering from the lack of trust. Or another problem is as I said, contradictory messages, which has made us reluctant about the real intentions of Americans in these negotiations. We are in doubt about their seriousness, but the moment we feel that they are serious and they are ready for a fair and balanced deal, we certainly proceed in the course of negotiation.
So there you have it. He's saying out very clearly that they're getting contradictory messages from the United States. One tweet says one thing one day, another tweet says something else the other day, and the fact that they don't have trust in the United States. Iran says this over and over again, we don't trust you, we don't trust you. And I've explained to you earlier why they don't really trust the United States. One of the reactions that we got pretty much instantly to the proposals that the U.S. sent in was that Iranian analysts immediately said that the U.S. was making no concessions. They were absolutely still sticking to the point, no concessions in response to Iran's proposals on how to end the war. End. Iran is fixated on the end of the war, and that is because they believe that they get attacked during negotiations. And that's happened twice before. So they feel that the next round of negotiations would possibly end up in another attack of some kind. And it doesn't help when President Trump tweets his rage occasionally, and then you get a proposal. So it's kind of difficult. I mean, if people in America can't figure out what Trump is trying to do, then think of how hard it is for the Iranian government to try and figure out when Trump is being serious and when he's not. One thing that Foreign Minister Araghchi said also was that there is no military solution. And I think he's right on that. There is no military solution to this current situation. There is only going to be a diplomatic, negotiated agreement that will end this current situation. Did you notice one very important thing? In the 5 points laid out by the United States, there is no mention of the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, I know, no mention of the Strait of Hormuz. Can we assume, can we guess that that is pretty much kind of settled? Because that was kind of settled as early as the Islamabad talks, which happened quite a while ago now, in which Iran said that the strait is open and will remain open. Well, some things have changed. Iran is not going to hold the position that it held at that time. Now Iran is saying that they are going to charge a toll, that the strait is owned by Iran and Oman. And I looked up a couple of other issues pertaining to this, and we've talked about the UN law of the sea as well, and that also applies here. But let's take a look at other straits. So you have the Strait of Malacca, which is controlled by Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. The Strait of Gibraltar, controlled by Spain, Morocco, and the United Kingdom. The Bab al-Mandeb, which is going to be a tricky one if this war goes ahead, is controlled by Yemen, Djibouti, and Eritrea. And, of course, several other straits that are controlled by different countries, because the Strait of Hormuz is within the territorial waters of Oman and Iran. You can't change geography, you can't change facts, much as the American administration would like to do so. And Iran has flexed this as much as it could, even going so far as to say that there are undersea internet cables running through the Strait of Hormuz, and they could disrupt those, which would in effect throw most of the Middle East and parts of Europe into an internet communications blackout. I don't think Iran would do that. I think it's just a flex. But it's something to keep in mind that Iran has a position right now which is hard to assail. And the U.S. proposal that has come through right now is not really taking into account another thing that Iran talks about. And this is important. I've said this before, that Iran always talks about being treated with respect and dignity. And I looked up those words, and in Farsi, it literally translates as izzat and ghairतमंद, and these are words that are extremely important in this part of the world. When Iran says dignity and respect, they're not throwing around those words casually. As a Pakistani, I can tell you that if a country has no izzat, no self-respect, no respect, no ghairat, no honor, then that country has nothing. And given the fact that the Farsi word and the Urdu word is identical, I can relate to what Iran is saying there. They're saying that we want to be treated like equals. And the United States is being extremely arrogant. And that arrogance is what is at play over here. Well, I stopped for a couple of minutes there because I had to go shush my dogs because they decided that they were going to join the vlog today. Well, anyhow, if you are watching this video, please do remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. And do share your comments as well because it helps me in understanding what more you'd like me to talk about. Well, coming back to the topic, has America lost this war? And I would say yes. Even if Trump decides to restart military action, the U.S. has lost this war. And let me tell you why. What have they achieved? Did any of the goals that they set out, whether it was regime change, removing nuclear weapons, reducing the ballistic missile inventory, ending Iran's support for its quote-unquote proxies, or what I call their allies, or aimed at starting a revolution within Iran by the people, they've achieved none of that. What have they achieved? Well, America has lost its ability to project power from a distance. America's naval assets have shown to be extremely vulnerable to a simple, not very expensive drone or a missile. America's ability to fight a ground war in difficult terrain is now being questioned. It made me laugh today when I saw a statement in Britain's Telegraph paper in which Trump is suggesting that the United Arab Emirates go and occupy or go and take over Kishan Island, which is a disputed island between Iran and the United Arab Emirates. Kishan is really close to the Iranian coastline, and seriously, you want the UAE to go and take over Kishan Island. I mean, I wish I could have seen the faces of the UAE when they saw that statement, or Iran for that matter, with no disrespect whatsoever. But what else did America achieve? Diplomatic isolation, a gentle dressing down by the Chinese president. Where is America left now? And one can't say this enough, or perhaps one should say it more, but a new world order is emerging. Iranians, Speaker of the Parliament, Mr. Ghalibaf, actually said something really interesting, and I'd like to read that tweet out for you. The world stands at the cusp of a new order. President Xi said, "The transformation unseen in a century is accelerating across the globe," end quote. And I emphasize that the Iranian nation's 70-day resistance has accelerated this transformation. The future belongs to the global south. Interesting, because Iran is now positioning itself as a leader in the global south. Iran is sending a signal to all other countries in this region that they are not a weakling, isolated, and sanctioned state anymore. And I don't think President Trump intended for this to happen. I mean, this whole war, one could write a long 2,000-word article on the war of unintended consequences. And perhaps the most disturbing thing for the United States and supporters of Israel, Israel has really dropped in the estimation of those countries that supported it. It breaks my heart that the genocide of 72,000 plus Palestinians, and that number rises every day, the continued and repeated invasions of Lebanon, none of this really triggered the world to turn against Israel as much as this misadventure against Iran has. Because this time, the Western world is suffering. The Western world is suffering because inflation, gas prices are up, there's uncertainty, there is a question of whether ground troops would be used or not. And in the United States, there has been a visible and drastic rejection of Israel's position in domestic American politics. Because just about everybody can see that this war was not in American interest at all. Iran cannot reach the American mainland. Iran has expressed no desire to reach the American mainland. Iran basically just wants to be left alone and to carry on with their development, which they have managed to do pretty well in their 47, despite their 47 years of sanctions and isolation. I mean, you look at their hospitals and their schools, they've done a good job. And if Iran is free to trade oil on the international market and export its goods and the sanctions are lifted, then Iran could very well turn into an economic superhouse. And this is where Pakistan and other countries in this region have to play it smart. The natural alliance for this region in West Asia is literally Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Saudi Arabia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and for the other Gulf Cooperation Council countries to join in. The UAE has now positioned itself outside this fold. They have very clearly sided with Israel and the United States, and I fear that India is going to go in that same direction. Despite hosting the BRICS summit just 2 days ago, it is interesting that India has pretty much asserted its alliance with Israel and the United States. And Foreign Minister Araghchi was there, but he didn't make any particular reference to that. He just criticized the UAE a lot for having sided with Israel. But India was the host country, and I think he kept a diplomatic silence on that and said we have a shared, unique, ancient history and culture. But he did, of course, also say that we will not forget who our enemies were. Well, that's going to be all from me today. Do sign in again and keep watching Quatrina News.